meeting. We'll let everyone grab their seat. We still see some coming in, and they're shutting the door.
Very good. Thank you.
The rest of our people in. So we call it to order at this time, and I'd like you, as you know, if you please join with me. I'd like to ask Representative Fugit if he would start us in prayer, and then we'll follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll please follow with us, we'll ask Chris to say the prayer.
Yes, sir. Let's pray. Thank you. Heavenly Father, thank you for the day, and thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to serve you and to serve our people. And Lord, today we come to you and we ask you to give us your wisdom and give us your strength, Lord, to make good decisions that would affect our people in a good way. Thank you for being faithful to us, and Lord, may we be found faithful to you. Thank you for loving us enough to die for us. And Lord, help us to live and make a difference for others. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Join me with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I'd like the clerk to go ahead and call the roll for us, please.
Senator Boswell. Here. Senator Carpenter. Senator Elkins.
Here.
Senator Girdler. Here. Senator Herron.
Here.
Senator Maiden. Senator Mills.
Here.
Senator Webb. Senator West. Senator Wheeler.
Here.
Senator Williams.
Here.
Representative Baker. Representative Bauman.
Present.
Representative Blanton.
Present.
Representative Bowling. Representative Bridges.
Here.
Representative Chester Burton.
Yes. Here.
Representative Dossett.
Present.
Representative Flannery. Representative Fugate.
Here.
Representative Hancock.
Here.
Representative Johnson. Representative McCool. Representative Miles. Representative Moore.
Here.
Representative Smith. Representative Watkins. Representative Wesley. Representative Whitaker. Representative White. Representative Williams. Co-Chair Smith.
Present.
And Co-Chair Gooch.
Here. We have quorum. I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Second.
If we could, I apologize for that. I think you guys got it noted for the motion and a second for the approval. Okay, so we'll have to do that again. Does my co-chair, Gooch, do you have any comments you'd like to make as we start our meeting?
No, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'm fine.
Very good. And before I yield, I do have several members that want to make comments. I want to ask for a sort of a point of personal privilege, if we could. We just had a tragedy in this country. We had a young individual, 31-year-old individual, and for a lot of us, that's the age of some of our children, and who was going onto campuses with the idea that debate is something that is important, that if marriages stop talking, they fail. If churches stop talking to each other, they fall apart. If communities get to where they're divided, they no longer exist. Civilizations fall apart when they stop talking. And this gentleman would bring a microphone and he would put it there for people to come and say what they please. And he died for that. And I'm talking about Charlie Kirk. And I will tell you, I didn't always agree with everything that Charlie said, but the principle of at least going out there and trying to save dialogue, which is becoming harder and harder across this country, especially at our campuses, is highly commendable. And I would yield to any member that would like to make a comment at this time on it. And if not, I'd ask for just a moment of silence for just dialogue, and that it survives in this country, and that we don't retreat into ourselves and feel angry about it. And if there was ever a time, more than any time I can remember, that we do want to reach out and foster debate and start talking to each other, it should be now. So if you'll join me with just a moment of debate or a moment of reflection. Thank you for that. Now, Representative Chris Fugit has an announcement he's going to make, so I will yield to Representative Fugit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As all of you know, or most of you know, we've been working on a trail system, an ATV, UTV trail system for the last, since 2017. 2020 we got funding, and we opened up trails in the county of Martin this year, some trails in Floyd County, Trails in Lawrence County are coming shortly, and trails in Johnson County. But on October the 21st, we're opening up trails in Letcher County, which is Representative Whitaker's district. We're opening up, it's about 25 miles around Fish Pond Lake. And I'd like to invite all legislators to come and be part of that day. You don't have to own a razor or anything like that to be part of it. But if you'll come, I'll send an email out. And if I can get a number of people that want to come, that can come, you'll see what the Trail Authority is about. And it's really economic development more than it is tourism. And so I'd like for everybody to come be part of that. We'll feed you. We'll start about 11 o'clock, and we'll ride. I think it's about an hour and 10-minute ride. And then we'll have lunch, and then the Trail Authority will have their actual meeting for the month after that. That's on October 21st. That's on Tuesday. And then October the 2nd, which is a week from next Thursday, the Trail Authority is doing a groundbreaking on a office building / garage for the Trail Authority. It's kind of going to be the central office area in Knott County. And that's going to be at 1 o'clock on October 2nd. That's at the Mind Made Adventure Park. I'll send out emails on that too. But thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.
And thank you. And what we can do is we can ask staff to make sure all members have these dates and information for you so we can get that handed out. Senator Wheeler.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to ask all of the committee members to remember our fellow member, Representative Bobby McCool. His mother passed away on Monday, and they're burying her today. So it's a very difficult thing to go through, so please remember him in our thoughts and prayers.
We certainly will. For those of you that heard, one of our colleagues, Representative McCool's mother, passed away, so we will have her in our thoughts. Do we have any other members that wish to be recognized at this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and get straight into our agenda. We have quite a few things to cover. At this time, I'll ask Senator Cassie Chambers Armstrong to come to the table. While she's coming to the table, if you'll take a quick moment to look down on our agenda on item 6, these require no action from us, but please go ahead and take a look at those in case you do have a question. This is the time to do it, so look through those. If you have a question while we're in the meeting, make me aware of it, and we'll certainly give you time to address that. With that said, we'll yield to Senator Armstrong, and please have all your guests identify themselves for our records.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Cassie Chambers Armstrong. I'm the Senator for District 19.
My name is George Eklund. I'm the Director of Education and Advocacy for the Coalition of the Homeless in Louisville, Kentucky.
I'm Wesley Brown. I'm a professional from Eastern Kentucky.
May I proceed, Mr. Chair? Thank you. First, Mr. Chair, I want to thank you for the opportunity to present this bill today. I've had the opportunity to speak with you about this issue, and I just want to acknowledge in public how clear it is to me in those conversations what an advocate you are for your people, the people you represent, and for the vulnerable among us. And I'm really grateful for that. I'm also grateful for the partnership of everyone who has participated in conversations around this bill. That has been nonprofits, that has been legislators, and that has been utility companies. And I want to say in particular that utilities have approached this legislation in a spirit of partnership, and I'm grateful for that. And I think that's because we share the same value that we're trying to address through this bill. Many of them have shared with me, actually everyone I have spoken to has shared with me that they are already engaged in these practices, and they actually have policies that are even more restrictive than what this legislation seeks to do. I also want to note that these conversations are ongoing, and I'm committed to working with stakeholders in the interim to get this policy right. We know there are some changes that we need to make, for example, making it very clear that this is only talking about disconnections for non-payment. There are times during natural disasters that you might need to disconnect electricity because of fires or because of flooding for safety, and we're not talking about those things. I'm also having conversations with utilities about ways that we might be able to give them more flexibility to design policies that will work for them in their area. But what we have before us today is legislation that's very simple. I'm not going to say a simple little bill. It's too early in the year to do that. But we have before us legislation that prohibits utility disconnections for non-payment during dangerous weather. Things like flooding, tornadoes, or when the National Weather Service has issued a warning related to extreme temperatures. This is an extremely narrow bill designed to protect our communities and vulnerable citizens. And I will say it does not take any steps related to back due balances, nor does it change any policies around reconnection. So why is this legislation needed? A few reasons. First is things exist right now. There's a patchwork in our state around this issue. Some utilities have these types of restrictions included in their tariffs due to issues in the past. Others have internal policies around them, but with varying degrees of rigor attached. This bill would level the playing field and set a minimum standard for everyone. Second, it's important that we acknowledge that we're operating in a landscape that can change. I'm so grateful that all of the companies I've spoken to have told me that this is a priority and a practice that they engage in. But it's important that if there were to ever be utility sales or mergers or new ownership, that we're setting clear guidelines about what we expect to protect citizens of Kentucky. I'll end before I hand it over to George to talk about the specifics of the bill. I'll end by saying this. I believe that this is an area where we can find consensus. During periods of emergency, we don't want people being worried that they're going to lose heat because their power might get turned off, or that they might not be able to go to grandma's house if their house is flooded because grandma was late on her bill. We don't want to add to the burden of our first responders dealing with calls for service related to people losing power for non-payment when it's dangerous outside, when they are dealing with other types of life or death crises in their communities. And so with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Eklund to discuss the specifics of this bill. And thank you again, Mr. Chair, for this opportunity.
Yeah, so again, my name is George Eklund. I work in homeless services as an advocate, as an expert. And I never get to testify in front of natural resources. But for me, 6 out of 10 low-income Kentuckians are spending more than 50% of their wages on housing. Like that's an issue that I deal with every day. That translates over to utilities as well, where if you can't afford your rent, you're going to struggle to pay your electric and your gas. I hear stories every day about clients who have past debt that we have to navigate. I hear stories about clients that are going to get evicted because they had their utilities shut off. So it is a real issue that we are always looking at and we're interested in talking about. Senate Bill 137 is a very narrow scope and common sense approach to how do we structure a way to keep people safe and move past a disaster so that we can weather it in place. So the bill does three major things. One is it creates a prohibition on shutoffs during extreme cold. It creates a prohibition of shutoffs during excessive heat, and it creates a prohibition on shutoffs during natural disasters, be it a flood, tornado, extreme blizzard, or whatever we might have come at us. It does not forgive any kind of past due balance. It doesn't forgive any kind of debt. This is really just about a moment in time that we need to make sure that everyone is safe, that they're not having to make extreme decisions like starting a fire in their unit and catching on fire, or having pipes freeze and upsetting their landlord that leads them to get evicted. That is by and large what this bill does. Why now? I think everyone in this room has had a natural disaster flirt with their area. I know some of you have been directly impacted. Some of you have family members in areas, and you have to help pick up the pieces in those moments. We are one of 9 states that have no minimum standard of what is expected of utility companies. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to just set the minimum standard across the board for all providers to meet. We also need to set expectations for new utilities as they come in through mergers and acquisitions. I've been in Louisville for a long time, and we've had 3 providers come through in that time. And so I want to set the expectation as PPL might sell to Duke, or they might sell to another provider, to know, okay, when you come work in Kentucky, this is what we're expecting of you as you start that process. So the 3 terms: extreme cold, it is set by the National Weather Service. It means that a apparent temperature of equal to or less than minus 10 degrees. This is pretty dang cold. And in the history of Kentucky right now, over the last 25 years, we've had 15 extreme cold warnings set by the National Weather Service. So it is a minority of instances that this would be enacted, but it is I just want to give you the facts of what's happened in the past. Excessive heat warnings. So maximum heat equal to or greater than 110 degrees for at least 2 hours. We've had 41 excessive heat warnings since 2000 in Kentucky. So again, it is the vast minority of days over the last 25 years that this would have been in effect. Natural disaster. So disaster is either declared by the governor or by the president, and it is just a moment where we need to focus on keeping people safe, getting people out of harm's way, and this just pairs really well with just taking utility shutoffs off the table during those moments. We've had 54 declarations from the federal level in the last 25 years, and we've had 67 declarations over the last 25 years at the state level. When you see these big numbers, this might be the entire state, or it might be just one county or two counties in a specific area. It is not like, don't take that as 120 counties got a declaration every this many times over the last 25 years. So I'm going to pause for questions, but I want to pass it to my colleague Wesley here to talk about, kind of the impact of shutoffs in real terms.
Hello. My name is Wesley Bryant. I'm a homeless survivor of the 22 floods. I'm a father to a house full of girls. I'm a partner to an educator. The thing I'm most proud of, though, is being a Kentuckian. I've held the hands of grandmothers shivering in their homes because the heat was cut off. I've sat across from parents in tears, wondering how to keep their babies cool during a blistering summer when the air conditioner stopped, not because it was broke, but because the power was cut off. These aren't rare moments in eastern Kentucky. They're heartbreakingly common. As a professional in the region, I see the brutal cost of poverty every single day. Families here are proud and resilient. They aren't out here asking for handouts. They aren't asking for debt forgiveness. To be honest, they aren't asking for anything. But they are also struggling with addiction, with illness, with the changing economy. And when an electric bill doubles overnight, and we've seen that with Kentucky Power, it hits you like a death sentence. What are you going to do? Do you pay the bills, or do you get groceries? Do you pay for medicine, or do we keep the lights on? In the middle of these impossible decisions, disconnection notices, they arrive like a death sentence. Electricity in eastern Kentucky, it's not a luxury, it's a lifeline. It runs the oxygen machines that keeps our neighbors breathing. It powers the heaters that keeps the newborns warm. And it powers the fans that prevents heat strokes in the elderly. Without it, the basic safety and dignity disappear. I've had to call community resources in the dead of winter for mothers and infants who were left in the cold with no power and nowhere else to go. I've seen children do homework by flashlight while their parents scramble to find help. I've seen too many people fall through the cracks because help came just a little bit too late. Legislation that protects Kentuckians from utility shutoffs during extreme weather, it's not about politics. It's about people. It's about drawing a line and saying, no one should freeze to death in their home just because they couldn't pay a bill. No child should suffer heat exhaustion because their family is poor. We need laws in Kentucky that prohibit electric disconnections during periods of dangerous heat and cold. Period. These protections will give families the time to seek help, make a payment plan, maybe connect with a local agency like mine. I urge our lawmakers, listen to the voices of Eastern Kentucky. Hear me now as I tell you about the fear in a mother's voice when she tells her child to sleep in her coat. Hear me now as I tell you, I hear the pain in the elderly's voice when he's saying he's trying to survive one more night. No one in our community should suffer or die because they can't afford to keep the power on. Protecting them is not just a policy, it's a moral responsibility. Thank you.
We have quite a few people that have requested to be recognized, but I would just say that I see Angie Hatton back there, who's a former representative, and Representative Fugit, and I will just say this about the three of us. During the flood, I think all of us have seen that and much more that we won't even talk about here, but we have seen this firsthand, and it's something that I would think we all agree that I could have gone through my life without seeing some of that, but you never forget it. So we know those stories quite well. But I will yield now to Representative Gooch first for the first question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have more comments, I think, than I do questions. But well, maybe it is a question. You know, we hear very passionate speeches about people suffering and about their utilities going up and them not being able to pay the utilities or having to worry about paying utilities or buying medicine or whatever. And we all know that's true. But I haven't heard anyone who's been here talking today. Well, first let me say I came here 30 years ago, and Kentucky had the lowest rates, electricity rates, east of the Mississippi River. We were like the second lowest in the nation. And that changed. And that changed because the federal government decided that they didn't like the sources that we were using to generate our electricity. And so they forced changes on us as far as the fuel choices. Hadn't heard anybody at the table ever say anything about those situations. You know, nobody's out there fighting the utility rates because of policies from Washington, but then they want to come in and talk about, well, we can't cut people off or whatever. Now, I was mayor of a small city that owns their own electricity and gas departments, and as such, I had to make decisions a lot of times. And of course, we usually try to accommodate people as much as we can. And I know that most of the utilities out there are going to do everything they can, because there's nothing worse than somebody freezing to death or dying of heat exhaustion, suffocation, or whatever in the hot summer times. So I know that they do try to make sure, because it's not good when those types of things happen. First, from the individual's point, but also none of the rest of us want to hear that. We don't want to hear something like that happening. But I do remember COVID. I think most of you do too. It hadn't been that long ago. Seems like it's lasted forever. But if you remember that during the COVID, you could not cut people's utilities off during COVID. Now, most of us also remember that during COVID, most of us got checks in the form of, I don't remember what they called them or whatever, stimulus checks or checks to take care of unemployment or whatever. And most of us got checks. And for the majority of people out there, those checks were enough to pay their utility bills. But I know hundreds of people that because they didn't have to pay their utility bill, guess what? They did not. And the real problem is that later on, the bills just don't go away. They're there. But what happened was 4 or 5 months later, then COVID, it lasted much longer than that. But all of a sudden, the bills were coming due. And because people didn't pay it, they couldn't pay it because they had a bill that was 4 or 5 months worth. And so I hope that we still realize that some people, if you say you don't have to pay, guess what? They're not going to pay. And that's a real problem. I'm not totally sure that this bill is needed for that reason and many other reasons. But I just really get upset when I see that the real reason that we're having a problem here is because utility bills have become unaffordable. And they've become unaffordable, and it's been happening over a long period of time, and we all sat silent, not members of this committee, but most of us sat silent and never mentioned the real problems that was the regulations coming from Washington, D.C. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you, Co-Chair.
May I respond briefly, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please do.
Thank you. And thank you for, I'm going to frame it as a question because I think I heard a question in there. And so thank you for the opportunity. And I think Mr. Eklund also indicated he might have some thoughts. One thing I want to point out about this that is different from some of the other legislation we've seen filed around disconnection policy is this bill only says that you can't disconnect for non-payment when the National Weather Service, which is a third party, says that there's a dangerous condition at that moment. And so we're not talking about situations where people even necessarily have advance notice of policy changes, or we know floods, tornadoes, these things happen really rapidly, and the period of disaster, of that immediate disaster, is short. And so this bill is not seeking to change anything related to the broader sort of land of utility policy that we exist in. That's why I say this is the most narrow version of legislation like this that I have seen. And of the 41 states that have policies like this, I believe that this is the most limited that you would see out of those as well, where we're literally just talking about in those moments where if the power goes out, someone could die. What are we doing to make sure that we are keeping people safe and giving them a little bit of peace of mind in those moments, and making sure that our first responders and our community leaders are focused on the problems that are already existing on the ground, and we're not creating new issues for them to deal with. Mr. Eklund, did you? Okay. Thank you.
Very good. And we have Senator Jay Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm not going to get hot under the collar about this one, but I've got a question about excessive heat warning. And I think this might just be a typo, because when I'm looking at the National Weather Service, it talks about a heat advisory, an extreme heat watch, and an extreme heat warning. And it has a definition for extreme heat warning. And so I think that's what they will be issuing advisories on. But this has excessive heat warning, which is not defined in what I'm looking here, and you had a different definition of that up there. So is this a typo, or do you mean something else other than one of these warnings they'll be issuing?
Senator, I knew I could count on you to give it a close reading. That seems that you have caught a typo. We're only referring to the extreme heat warnings, which are 110 or 115 degrees, which I just want folks to sit with that number, that we're talking about 41 days over 25 years, Mr. Eklund. And so that's not a lot of days that we're talking about. And I think we would all agree when it's 115 degrees outside, we really need to be using all our resources that we got to keep people safe. But I knew I could count on you to read the fine print, Senator.
You're welcome. Thank you for your...
Very good. We have Representative Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I think that last question answered one of my questions that I had in reading this. The second question is, of the 41 other states that has something similar to this, are they using the same standard, the National Weather Service, or are they setting their own point or temperatures in their statutes? Do you know?
They are using the National Weather Service by and large as just the unbiased third party that is the definitive decider of when these thresholds would be met. Our policy that's drafted here would be most like Georgia's, if I'm remembering correctly, but I can give you a deeper analysis after the meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. We have Representative Flannery.
Thank you. I walked in during roll call, so I would like to be recorded as present. We have a LIHEAP program, which seems to cover kind of the purpose of this proposal. So I guess my question would be, why is this necessary, given that we already have a LIHEAP program?
So LIHEAP is offered 4 times a year, for those that don't know, during summer, spring, fall, and winter. Once a county expends those funds, it's done. Like it closes. I mean, in Louisville, it closes within a matter of days. So this is, and when people are applying, sometimes it is not a immediate check in your pocket or an immediate disbursement to the utility company. You have to go through a lot of verification. You have to prove that you do have a Brown bill. And that's if I were criticizing the LIHEAP program, I think we should figure out a way to let people access assistance sooner before they are already further in debt to the utility companies. So, I mean, that's a whole other issue. But it takes time to access those funds, and they're limited funds. That is the real crux of it there, Representative.
So,
Do you have a follow-up?
Yes, sir. Are the entirety of the LIHEAP funds exhausted every year?
Yes.
Okay, we have Senator Boswell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, first of all, do you have some idea of how long you actually, on an average, have to be past due before your bill will be cut off? That's my first question. And second, you said, the Senator, by priority, I think you said priority and practice. A lot of companies are already establishing this criteria where they actually don't cut people off. So there's no law in force that says a utility can't voluntarily do this. Is that correct?
That's correct, Senator. And I think the reason that it's important to do this legislatively, I think there are a couple of reasons. One, I think these internal policies, there's varying degrees of rigor around enforcement and tracking. There's varying degrees of notice to the public about them. There's varying degrees of how they are operationalized. There are also companies that actually have this in their tariff from the PSC because of past issues. And so I believe that it is the purview of this body to set legislative policy. I heard someone talking about executive orders and whatnot. I believe it's the role of this body to set minimum standards for policy that we expect folks to follow. And if companies want to voluntarily go above that, that's wonderful. And I actually think every utility I've talked to would go above that. But one thing that does is give this branch of government the ability to make decisions about that. And I think that's really important to members in this room. The other thing it does is create uniformity at that bare minimum floor, which I think is important. In particular, this is a landscape where we see a lot of changes, and it's good for everyone to understand what those very baseline expectations are. I'm going to let Mr. Eklund answer your other really good question about the timelines, if that's okay, sir.
Yeah, I don't have like a definitive answer for you, Senator. What I can do is I can get some anecdotal information from some of our community ministries in Louisville. I imagine that every utility provider has their own internal policies that they say when is the line that the cutoffs actually happen. So I can get you anecdotal information and I can send it to the rest of the committee as well.
Thank you. You know, I might just say this, my last comment is that perhaps something like a resolution might be more appropriate than a law. That's my own view. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Senator West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My questions revolve around the disaster declaration aspect of it. First question, sometimes we have these longer disaster declarations. If they're in an affected area, they may be for 2, 3, 4 months at a time. First question is, how do you keep that in line? Kind of going along with Representative Gooch's scenario. If you got 4 months at a time, what keeps them from getting in too far? Second question is, along the declaration line, what's to prevent the governor through executive order from declaring a disaster for an unlimited period of time, just specifically for this issue? Or what guardrails could you put in there to address that?
Thank you, Senator. Those are excellent questions, and I'll try to take them, and then Mr. Eklund knows far more about the details than I do. But your first one is actually a weakness that I was talking about. We know we need to make revisions. The goal of this is to address that immediate period of crisis after a disaster. When, again, we don't want, when we're dealing with floods, when we're dealing with devastation from tornadoes, we don't want someone facing a life-threatening condition because their power got turned off to their oxygen machine when every first responder and every resource in that community is focused on something else. And so I've had conversations with different stakeholders about what it looks like to draft language that is just dealing with the initial period of crisis. And that's something that we're still working on, and I expect we'll continue to do that in the interim. I also want to note another conversation we're having in line with Senator Boswell's point is what would it look like if we required utilities to develop their own policies around natural disasters, extreme heat and extreme cold, but submit those to the Public Service Commission for approval so that everyone has the flexibility to do what is going to work for them, but then we have some safeguards around making sure that everyone does in fact have a policy in place. And that's something that I think has been well received in a conversation that's continuing. I'm not remembering the second part of your question. Would you please remind me?
I'll state it again. If the governor issues an executive order declaring a disaster, let's say in the wording of your slide presentation, it basically said executive order. So I took that to mean the governor could declare a disaster, and the utilities would have to follow that.
My understanding, Senator, is that the types of declarations of natural disaster that my bill references are in federal law. And there are guidelines and criteria that have to be met for something to qualify as a natural disaster. And so it'd only be in those circumstances where that federal law criteria is met that a natural disaster declaration would be appropriate and would trigger this type of prohibition. Those are excellent questions. Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add, Senator, is that
Actually, before you go ahead, if we could, just in the sake of time, because I think it's good. It's obviously there's a lot of engagement here. This is an important subject to us, but we have 5 other members that would like to ask questions. So if we could do this, let's let them ask, and you guys summarize. That way we can move forward with respect to the other individuals we got, and that we don't start losing our members. So at this time, let me yield to Representative Smith, and then we'll move through, and then more than I think Wheeler and Williams, and then they can ask their questions, and you guys can wrap up in a summary. Is that okay? Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be real brief. First of all, I can understand your passion and what you face there. We all face that in our districts, where somebody's lost their electorate, lost their utilities, either through financial or some other thing that's hit their family. The concern that I have is as we look at bills to give relief, which it would do, we still face the whole mindset of the drastic increase every year in utilities. And it's going to become more and more relevant out there on people being able to afford their electric bill or their water bill or any utility. The statement that I'd like to make to the senator as you reach out to this is join us in helping us find the most cost-efficient way of producing electric for our grids. Because it's things like this that we have to keep in mind when we push coal. We push fossil fuel because of the abundance and because of the cost effectiveness of it. It's not to pollute. It's not to kill people off. It's to find ways for people to be able to do what the gentleman's talking about, people to afford it. If we can burn coal and reduce your cost by 30%, what would that do for you? What would it do for these families that's lost their electric? So I'd like for you to be open-minded on that. I'll be open-minded on what you're trying to accomplish here, because I want it for my people too. I don't want anybody to be froze. Don't want anybody to be the heat to take them out. We don't want anybody to die. But we also would like for everybody to collaborate on finding solutions. And we know that there are solutions out there, but we have to be aware that we're talking about mankind, and we have to be able to give and take. Does that make sense? So I'll definitely be open-minded and looking at this stuff, but I also ask that we find remedies, that we don't find ourselves in this situation. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Representative Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question was going to be, what is the penalty for an organization, a utility company that then did shut off something if this were to pass? You can answer that if that is written out based on statutes, where this would fall into the Kentucky Revised Statutes. Then my second thing is just on the intent. There's been like a really well-rounded conversation here. A lot of it does go back to the cost of electricity, the cost of utilities, and of course, we want to bring the cost down so people are not priced out where they might get shut down. But I'm thinking about the intent of this, and I just want to put it out there on record. The question would have been, is the intent of this to make sure that Kentuckians get a handout of some free utilities, or is the intent to save lives during extreme weather events? I think it's the latter, and for those of us who care about life and saving lives and saving Kentucky lives, I think it's important to factor that into our evaluation of this when, we're founded in the pursuit of life, liberty and personal happiness. That would be my questions.
Very good. We have Senator Wheeler at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really would just probably echo a lot of what Representative Smith said. I think this bill, it's not a bad idea to put some baselines in here that, obviously we've had some potential sales of utilities in the last few years that we've all seen that can result in different policies. So, that might be something worth evaluating if somebody wants to come into the Commonwealth, if this is what the minimum that we expect. Of course, again, going back to how Representative Gooch started, we have to recognize how we got here, and it was through a poor energy policy out of Washington that has hurt poor people and devastated an industry in my district that, essentially was pushed by one party, and it has left lasting damage to both my region and the people that live in it. And let's just hope that with some of the new policy statements coming out of Washington, that we can reverse some of the harm while providing needed relief to the customers in the region.
Good. And Senator Jay Williams.
Thank you for my second comment. And most of my questions are answered. I just want to point out that I don't see anything in this bill that alleviates the customer the responsibility to pay for the additional power. And I do want to point out, my brother lives in South Florida. They had a national disaster where a lot of people were out of power for months. The PSC had a difficult decision they had to make. Do they let a utility that couldn't afford to not get paid for 2 months? Because the people weren't actually getting the power. The lines were all down. And actually, that PSC in Florida required you to pay your average monthly bill, even though you didn't get the power. So we just need to be careful that we aren't presenting the PSC and the utilities with some tough decisions they have to make. But I don't see that in this bill, that payment's required. But we can't have natural disasters that eliminate the power, not because of the power company, but because of the time to recover, that we're going to have possibly some tough decisions.
If you could take about 3 minutes there and wrap this up for us, if you could.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't take that long. I want to thank you all. I think in your questions, I heard a lot of additional conversations for us to have and ways to work together, and I'm sincerely grateful for the engagement. And I'm also not surprised that we all have the same goal. I think we all believe people should not freeze to death when it's cold, or have heat strokes when it's warm, or have to make life or death choices when there are tornadoes and when there's flooding. And I want to work with you all and any other stakeholder watching to figure out how we put some guardrails in place in a way that makes sense for Kentucky. And there are a lot of other conversations to have around that. And I can tell that I have partners in that goal in this room, and I'm really grateful for that. And again, Mr. Chair, I'm just so grateful for the conversation. This has been immensely helpful as we all move forward towards this goal. Thank you.
Thank you all for your testimony. Okay, we'll keep moving. At this time, I'd like to ask our outdoor adventure tourism group to come up. I see Eric Hubbard back there. It's good to see him mobile. I think Eric is trying to get over 2 broken vertebrae. I've got it correct. You all please take the table, and then just we'll turn it over to you. Identify yourself for our records, please.
I promise I didn't break it, so I didn't touch it yet. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to come to one of my favorite things to talk about is our natural resources of Kentucky, the Commonwealth as a whole, but especially our natural resources of Eastern Kentucky. My name is Eric Hubbard. I'm the Executive Director of Backroads of Appalachia, and I've invited 2 gentlemen that has done so much for our region that they don't ever really get the light, and also we don't really know unless you're part of the culture what they do, and I want to bring them to be able to give you information on. Go ahead, Mr. Luke.
With the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway Stewardship Committee.
And my name's John Lawson. I also am on the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway Stewardship Committee.
Gentlemen, welcome to our committee.
Thank you. So, of course, I just want to go ahead and start, as where I always start whenever I do come to Frankfort to testify or to meet. Wherever I may roam, Eastern Kentucky will always be my home. As some of you know, my job is to go travel, recruit, bring opportunities to Eastern Kentucky, and I take a great pride in being that person. Have the trust to do so for not just for economics, but also to bring factors for our youth to enjoy and get them engaged at an early age where they will hopefully become and stay in Eastern Kentucky for a census issue, but most importantly, take pride of where they're from. Our mission, Backroads of Appalachia's mission, is route mapping and distribution. We have a couple of mobile applications that we do that with, thanks to the USDA. Our first one was called the Backroads of Appalachia. We're partnering with River Magazine and River Mobile Application, as well as GPX files for the off-roaders to be able to come and enjoy our public access roads we have to offer inside of our region. We stimulate tourism. Tourism is all about bringing people in. We focus on trickle tourism. Events are great, but the daily passes of people come to Eastern Kentucky now. We went from when we first started an organization to a one-day destination. We're proud to say after 6 years of a lot of work and effort, thanks to our legislators, we're a 3-night destination stay for people inside the motorsport industry now inside of Eastern Kentucky. We host and facilitate multiple events. I think we're almost up to 200 events for 2025. Today I had to leave. I thought was the neatest thing is that we have people from 9 different countries, 31 people from Toyota, Gazoo Racing from Finland. They're inside Rockcastle County as I'm here testifying, trying out a prototype rally car for the 2026 season of the American Rally Association. Our purpose is also to attract the industry.
Eric, say that again. I want to make sure we got this right. Yeah.
So I had to, don't get me in troubles with Toyota, but I got plenty of video. But this week I had the privilege for the second time in the past 3 months to have from Finland, Gazoo Racing, which is the GR racing of the world, and of course, United States we have TRD, which is Toyota Racing Development. But we have visitors here from 9 different countries: Finland, all over Europe, and Japan. Their purpose is to test a new prototype car for I'm not allowed to say what car, but it has something to do with off-road. And they are out exploring in Rockcastle County for this week and spending their hard-earned money, but most importantly, our volunteer fire department made over $6,000 for 3 days of their time. Next up, of course, is attracting the industry. It's what we're doing. And we're also revitalizing communities. You know, when you start having traffic in a community, one thing that it's not no expert that's told me this, it's just common sense. If you got traffic coming to a downtown, and the downtown is the heart of any community or any city or county seat. When the traffic starts flowing, pride starts coming back. Trash starts getting cleaned up. People act differently, and my job is to drive as much traffic as possible to our little communities or co-impacted communities in Eastern Kentucky. In 2024, this economic impact, I'm gladly to share the information to anyone that asks for it. We, of course, work in Kentucky and West Virginia and Southern Ohio. But in 2024, through a third-party economic impact study, we were able to generate $50.5 million inside the Commonwealth of Kentucky through our motorsport initiative in Eastern Kentucky. Here's a look at how we do it. Tools for tourism. We don't all need to be guides all the time and directing people. You know, in the world I'm in adventure, economic tourism as a whole, we're kind of daredevils in a good way, very stewardship way, but we're daredevils. We want to get out and have the opportunity to get lost, try to figure out how to make it back out, how to stories you could tell your friends when you go home, how you had found a tree branch to ride over a creek or something like that. That's just part of the experience. But thanks to GPS technology and apps like River, accessing existing roads and natural resources gives us, the riders or the drivers, the knowledge and confidence to explore areas in communities such as in Booneville, Kentucky, McKee, Kentucky, and all over Eastern Kentucky. Expanding travel and tourism. Thanks to our legislators last year, we had a bill called Senate Bill 63 pass. That is a special use permit, a license plate, not a side-by-side license. Here's what the difference is. UTVs is a wonderful thing. We're all about our UTVs and having the ability to tag and insurance them. But it's also about bringing in prototype and racing facilities from the world into our area where they can create an address, create a business, and be able to have something now that's reciprocating law to 37 other states. This increase in street legal vehicles have fueled growth in both regional and statewide travel. I'm going to turn it over real quick to our wonderful friends at the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway. This is a group I've known about for a very long time. We started partnering together, and what they're able to do is truly astonishing in the counties that they're already in, and the traffic has really increased so much from it. So I'll turn it over to you all.
All right, so once again, I'm on the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway Stewardship Committee, and what that is, it's a network of roads and trails that encompasses over 1,000 miles through Powell, Jackson, Menifee, Owsley, Leslie, Laurel, Rockcastle, Clay, Estill, Lee, and Wolfe counties in Kentucky. And the trails, the network is about roughly 1/3 trail, 1/3 gravel, 1/3 pavement, and it utilizes historic county roads. And we work with the judge executives of each and every one of those counties to get them to stand behind us and ensure that we keep those roads open. These counties don't have a lot of money for road maintenance should something occur, and so we raise that money ourselves through events, sales of merchandise. Some of you may have seen the OHV 4KY license plate, which is a program that we started, and there's a lot of those running around the state, which shows how much support there is for the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway. And it brings a lot of people to the area. The economic growth is not something that I've measured, but I can see it just in the fact that there's more things happening now. And it wouldn't surprise me right now if there weren't 100 or 200 vehicles on it as we speak. Is there more? Yeah, it's constantly in use, and the committee that manages it is completely 100% volunteer. There's just a group of us who have gotten together and decided that the best way to preserve access to trails is to provide economic growth through these areas where the trails are, and that's really taken off and become our primary mission. There's no real positions in the committee. It's all, like I said, it's all volunteer. And if we need some things done that we can't do, or they're simple as such as, there's some trees down on the road, we literally will just put it on our website or on our Facebook page, asking for volunteers from our group to go clear it, and it'll happen. So there are a lot of additional businesses have sprung up in the areas that the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway goes through. Campgrounds. There are guided tour businesses where people will take guided tours of the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway. We have an official map on cartatracks.com. There's over 20,000 downloads of that map. And we also have an official map on Gaia and Onyx. So we've partnered with them. I really think that that's a good summary of what the Daniel Boone Backcountry is and what we do. Is there more? Should I ask?
Well, I can add to that real quick. A group of volunteers, kind of how Backroads of Appalachia started on the street side. The Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway has been how many years in existence now?
Since 2016. Yeah, 9 years.
9 years, and I can see the increase in traffic inside of these counties and the positive. I know in Owsley County and Booneville, the bus stop really brags on all the dirty vehicles coming by and eating with them now. That's improvement. That's opportunity. So hosting events. Thank you, Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway. Hosting events, of course, Backroads of Appalachia. We have trickle tourism on our mobile applications. We bring people in daily. They're spending their hard-earned money. But you also create amazing events throughout our region to bring hard, impactful money at one time into our region through our events we do. 2025 Backroads of Appalachia, our finale, is the 24 Hours of Appalachia. This is an endurance run, something we've been doing now. This is their 7th event. We've raised over $112,000 for charities. But you have 24 hours through a navigation to navigate off-road and compete in an endurance run. This is not a race. This is a way for you to stay on the course, for you to be able to see if you have the grit to be able to finish the course in the time frame allotted. It's open to adventure bike motorcycles, now Kentucky street legal side-by-sides, as well as other out-of-state side-by-sides, which we has always had to do in the Commonwealth. We was allowed to invite people in from other states, but we couldn't invite our own people to do it because of the law, as well as the Jeepers and the Overlanders to be able to enter this event. I encourage each and every one of you to go to 24 Hours of Appalachia and take a look at some of the videos where our media team is amazing on that. And I take great pride this year in saying we have 460 miles that will be all done on the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway, and it's the third weekend of October. And Representative Fugit, you still entering that with us? Awesome. So hopefully we'll have a couple of legislators entering it with us.
I plan on it if we can get this tax issue fixed for my side-by-side. I can't license it because it's got a lien on it, and that needs to be fixed by, I think, the Department of Finance, so we can get that done. I want to do it, and Representative Truitt, we're going to ride together. That'll be a load for us to haul through the mountain, but we want to do it.
Also, what we're working on for 2026 is to really take over something that someone you might have heard of, the Baja 1000. We're looking at doing a navigational endurance run, the Appalachian 1000. It will encourage and it will require us to utilize two states, West Virginia and Kentucky. And like I said, wherever I may roam, Eastern Kentucky will always be my home. So figure out where we're going to finish it, and the majority of it's going to be. Upcoming major events, I take great pride. We have been really working hard in the rally industry. I travel a lot. I'm leaving tomorrow doing a rally event, but next year, I'm proud to say, in Rockcastle, Jackson, Lee, and Owsley County, the Boone Forest Rally has become a reality as a national event. We will be getting the opportunity to highlight our region to a national level as well as world level. Through the rally, this has brought in opportunities from multiple corporations looking at testing and also the potential to invest inside our region. And rally is a gentleman's sport. If you're not familiar with it, they're not banging doors. They're not racing each other. They're racing themselves in a clock. We had this year the Boone Forest Rally. We had 337 volunteers to put on a seamless event, which I'm proud to also say that we were the checkbox for the second largest motorsport event in the world, the World Rally Championship, that we passed all the requirements for ACUS, which is the United States American Insurance Company, to allow the World Rally Championship to come to the United States. It was Tennessee only until they started meeting us, and now we're working on Tennessee and also Kentucky Rally. So that's bringing a lot of bang for the buck into our region. GNCC Racing, the Grand National Cross Country. It is the largest enduro race, motorcycles and four-wheelers, inside of the United States. We have, through a lot of hard work and dedication, we are looking at potentially, and it's looking very well, to bring one to Pike County and also one to Knott County for 2026. Vital Partners. Of course, 2025 has been a landmark year forging major partnerships. To me, the WRC, King of Hammers, is something that I would like to talk to you about in Ultra 4, and also Race Treads, to be able to bring them inside of our Commonwealth of Kentucky is truly amazing. Future home of Backroads of Appalachia, through it's actually a $7.6 million grant, but the $3.8 million is designed for construction. In Owsley County, Kentucky, we have the opportunity now to not just talk about motorsports. We're in the process now of building, starting environmental should be done. We'll start building a world-renowned, not racetrack, a training course. A place to be able to bring people in to train them on the jobs of motorsports, not driving. How do you put on a race? And that's the thing we're lacking inside the United States versus Europe, is having certified, trained people to be able to come in and put on a race safely. And it's all about the insurance and safety of our people. The ALT's mission is to promote adventure travel, training, and economic development through motorsports. And also the most important thing of this grant would not happen without our legislators in House Bill 1. You gave us the money for match, $1 million match money to build a bridge over a creek, which then we leverage to the federal government as our money to receive the grants. So thank you so much. Headquarters, in partnership with the BOA and AOT and also the First Frontier Trail System that we did sign a lease agreement with as well for a trailhead parking lot for Owsley County. ARA's Rallies relocated their headquarters there, so the training facility for the American Rally Association will be inside of Owsley County, Kentucky. Also, the most important thing to me, and this is something that I can't even explain, the King of Hammers. Has anyone ever heard of the King of Hammers? If not, I encourage you to look it up. It's the largest motorsport off-road event in the world. It's done in Johnson Valley, California. They become the fourth largest city in California throughout the 2-week race they do every year. I'm pleased to say that we have now recruited them to Leatherwood, Kentucky, and they will be starting up in 2026 as a Ultra 4 race, with the King of Hammer East Coast coming in the 2027 mark. We don't have enough lodging. Virginia, Norton, Virginia, West Virginia don't have enough lodging for what's coming. And the only thing I could say is Kentucky Derby, it's below that, would be the size and magnitude what we're able to bring. And it's all through motorsports.
It's 20% larger than Coachella.
Yep.
Is what it is. To give you an idea of the traffic of the RVs and stuff.
Yep. Yeah, Burning Man and King of Hammers is very equivalent in numbers. What happens in Arizona?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Burning Man, 20% bigger than Burning Man.
Yep.
We were looking at the RV traffic for it, and it's just shocking.
Yep. So with that, also King of Hammers and Ultra 4 moved from Anaheim, California's headquarters to Owsley County, Kentucky now. Same thing, magnitude. The problem they have is volunteers and also certified personnel to be able to put on events. Now they have a facility inside of Eastern Kentucky where we'll bring people from around the country and also Ultra 4s worldwide around the world to get them certified to be able to put on more professional motorsport events inside of our country, but also the world. Industrial and growing partners, Green APU, of course, up in Bowie County, Kentucky. They are working and almost finished with their hiring people, getting ready to start operation. And we're still in dialogue and dialect with Vermont Sports Cars on potential investment inside of our region. Measuring the momentum, we're tired. Our staff and myself, very small. So far this year, we've had over 150 events across Appalachia. Our projection right now is $60 million for 2025. We had over 4 million people engaged in our regional events inside of our region. We averaged 300,000 engaged national through major events. So, when we do travel, we do engage and we recruit. Our social media, I never thought that someone like me be a social media influencer getting a check, but here we are. We have 13 million Facebook views this year. 1.1 million on Instagram, and TikTok is 355,000. I've seen the government trend, so we kind of laid back on the TikTok. Impacting the future is very important to me. When I was a young man, son of a paralyzed coal miner, Eola, Kentucky, I was told in high school, told by elders, told by people at church, when I graduated high school, get out. You have no hope here. You have no opportunity here. That's a problem. That was the problem I was given, and it took me a long time to wander back to Eastern Kentucky. But to be able to bring opportunities for our children to take pride in and have jobs and careers for them to stay in Eastern Kentucky is my number one goal and objective in life. I don't want the next person to be shameful that they're from Appalachia. We need to take pride of where we're from. We do have the most beautiful natural resources that we can convert into economics and sustainability. The GNCC I've already talked about, but to be able to bring the Grand National Cross Country to Pike County, Knott County is truly amazing. And the King of Hammers, one more time, it is the largest off-road event in the U.S. and the world, and is coming to Kentucky. And I know we're running on time, so thank you for your time, and hopefully if there's any questions, we'll be able to answer.
We have some. I think what's important for our members to realize is natural resources, our committee spends the majority of our time making sure coal, oil, gas, all these companies are good stewards of natural resources from. It's rare that we get to see somebody utilize them like your group's been. So this is a rather new phase for this committee and the state to see the type of development that you all brought to these regions, because the places we're talking about have not been utilized before. A lot of them are are coal strip jobs that nobody's doing anything up there to them. But what you're going to see at Leatherwood is going to be remarkable to see it utilized like this. So we are stewards of making sure that it's put back and the hydro seeding and the reclamation's done the way it is and that it's handled properly. But it's relatively new for every member of this committee to see it move into the transition to be utilized at a national stage. So we want to make sure, like we've done with our previous roles, that we do this right as well. So we're really excited about what you're bringing here. The King of the Hammers, I got a chance this summer to meet Dave. Eric and I did the Colorado 500. He was my guest for us to complete that route because we're working on doing the 606 in Kentucky. We would like to bring that here next year. But you're going to see Kentucky finally come into its own as far as letting people have the type of adventure tourism and off-road tourism that Chris has worked on so hard, and many of us have had played a role in that. But it's finally coming into its own, and this committee will play a lead role in that. So we've got several members that want to speak. Senator Boswell first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, this is fantastic. I mean, bringing tourism and economic development to Eastern Kentucky, definitely a large part of what we need to do up here. The only concern I have, and I'm not bringing this up to kind of throw mud or water on you, what you're doing, but I'm looking at some of your pictures here, like vehicles traveling through streams, and I see a lot of erosion problems, the result of this. And so what are you going to do as you're planning forward in the future to make sure that the legislature don't end up having to come and do a lot of reclamation for some of the stuff that you are doing?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. So we work very closely. This picture that's taken right here is actually a county road that's registered as a county road. So not just for us, but for the individuals. We notify and we notice a lot of these county roads. I can give you a prime example in Owsley County. There was a creek crossing beside the property that we have. The county itself purchased a right-of-way to go away from the creek crossing, as well as the bridge that we're developing to build over the creek crossing on the other side of the property. So, creek crossings is always something that us as off-roads do to consider and do think about, because settlement is very important. We actually did a study with the Boone Forest Rally 3 years ago with environmental about settlement into the national forest to see if there was an impact, because we had a water crossing. So in the form of motorsports, environmental and being a good steward is very important, and we will continue on to build that relationship and also work with our county governments and county roads on ways to go collectively around it.
Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you.
Representative Baker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Eric, on these large events that you have in various communities, I know satisfaction for the people who are visiting as well as those people who are serving those people who visit is very important to make sure that you have an opportunity to bring those people back again and again. And to expand on that, what type of outreach is done to small business? What I'm thinking about, I used to do student conferences, and I recall going to a conference in Nashville one time years ago, and there were thousands of young people there. And the only place to eat that was actually open in the downtown area within walking distance was one Subway. And the employees were overwhelmed. They ran out of food, and it was just kind of a nightmare. I'm just thinking about the small businesses to make sure they're well stocked, they're well staffed, and that they're satisfied with the event as well.
Well, my goal every time we do an event inside of a little community is to sell them out. Prime example, Stanton, Kentucky, this year they ran out of bread at their Subway and had to run and get more bread. That's a good thing. But we do notify. We do work with our local businesses. We do tell them it's coming. But the old saying is, you don't know it's here because, there's some guy that's randomly come and say, I'm going to have a bunch of people here. They've heard that before until there's a bunch of people there. And but it's a good problem to have, but ultimately we always want to continue to work. And a big part of what we're doing now is not just about tomorrow or today. It's really about the future, right? We're growing Eastern Kentucky. We need restaurants. We need lodging. We need all this. And Representative Fugis, a prime example of that with First Frontier as well. How do we train our people? And this is a conversation I had recently in Washington, D.C. Eastern Kentuckians has been kicked down so many times that they don't have the feelings or the belief that they can be an entrepreneur and be a business owner. And that's from all the false promises that's been given to our people in our region. And that's just the truth. How do we build pride back to our local people and our youth for them to invest in learn different things from the Kentucky Highlands, SCED. How can they get training where they can get a small business loan, become the business owner? Because the last thing I want to see Eastern Kentucky become, and no disrespect to Powell County when I say this, is outside money coming in and our people becoming the mountain wage people, and just like they do in Pigeon Forge. How do we build our local people, let them become the business owners, which is a tax for the Commonwealth of Kentucky?
And I will say one thing. I did an event for Eric a couple years ago, and what's unique about it is most of us, when we raise money, it's just recycled money. I buy cakes off your kids, you buy something off mine, we help one cheerleader, and then it just recycles in the community. But the event that I did for Eric, it was 98% of everybody out there. It was the Corvettes and the Mustangs, and they were all from another area. And they sold out. We brought in food trucks, and they completely sold out of everything they had. So it was a win all the way across the board, because every bit of that money that came in was from somewhere else. It wasn't just me giving Chris some money and Chris giving John, then John giving back to me. It wasn't a recycled dollar, which most of us have in these communities. That's just the way it is. This was all new money. And I think that's probably, for me, when it turned the light on, that this is really something remarkable that we had not seen before with economic tourism. So we have several more questions. We have Senator Maiden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to go back about 5 years ago, Mr. Hubbard, when I received a call from Representative Bolin one day saying, hey, I've got this guy who wants to put on a race in your town. And I was like, who's Eric Hubbard and what are you talking about? But so fast forward 5-6 years later, that first race, I think we had 30 some cars, maybe 40 we might have got there. And this past April, we had over 100 and 38 states represented. And every year that they come now, they completely occupy our state park and every other Airbnb and anything that we've got. It's a big thing for 3 days. He comes in on Friday and takes all the cars out to different schools and lets the kids sit in them. And it's become a really huge thing. And they bring them downtown on Friday night, and the kids get to sit in them, and adults, and it's really become a huge thing. So when Adam first called me, I thought, what in the world is he talking about, racing through our state park? Well, they don't actually race. Like he said, it's a time trial thing, and it's pretty cool. And we run buses, and people, it's really come a long way now, over 100 cars this past year and 30-some states. So it is a big draw. And as the chairman said, that's all money that's coming in there that's not local money. They're spending it at our restaurants or staying at our state park. They're buying things. So it's really turned out to be a good thing. And I want to take it another step further. Last month, we received a request from them saying that they would sign a 10-year deal with us. They had a few requests. It wasn't real bad. But so that's turned into something now that's going to be a major event in Eastern Kentucky. And Eric, through Bolin, started all of that, and I certainly appreciate it, and it's really turned out to be a big thing for our area. I want to switch gears a little bit, Eric, and talk about Senate Bill 63. How many counties do we have, you think, now that are on board and have passed?
Last what I was told, and I cannot find the information, it's like Representative Fugit talked about the tax with the lien. In Owsley County, I have a lien on my side-by-side, and it took some time. It took a little, I think it's $46 more, but I was able to tag my side-by-side inside of the county. So everyone, and I know Representative Fugit and Senator Storm, and I think Representative Truitt, we went to the County Clerks Association before the bill went live. And there's a lot of information, and I'm not going to get into the bureaucrats and how all that works.
I'll do that for you here in just a
minute. All
minute.
Right. But, it's been a very positive thing, but we also got a lot of local people confused, a lot of local people trying to go to other counties to tag them because this county's charging more money in this county. And the bill is pretty clear and accurate. It's a $20.50 sheriff inspection if you bring a sheriff, and it's $11.50 to tag it per year. And so it's a lot of misconception, and I think that's hurt the overall numbers and counties wanting it because of the misconceptions that's been giving.
And no personal property tax.
Well, and that's the thing, the legislation that, I know Senator Storm's working on that with the tax. It's not in the bill about personal property tax. However, my understanding is that it has been talked about for January, and that's going to be up to our legislators to ensure that, because this bill does not give you the freedom, the authority to go from Hazard, Kentucky to Lexington, Kentucky, go watch UK ball game and ride back home. That's not what it's about. It's 20 miles. You're allowed to go on the state highway, and the whole purpose of this bill is, one, our local people, Kentuckians, West Virginians come to Kentucky, guess what they have? Turn signals, horns, safety equipment, and insurance. If they get an accident on the highway, they're going to be able to have at least insurance to cover their damages. We have, this whole thing for Kentuckians is the same opportunity. Laws require insurance. If you're on a public highway, you need to have insurance on that in case you do, because let's just be honest, a Hyundai now costs $45,000, So to have that ability now to have people legally, but the whole purpose of this is for the First Frontier Trail System, the Daniel Boone Backcountry Byway, the Kentucky Adventure Trail, is for people to be able to get off the off-road, get on a highway, and stop in the community, get gas, get something to eat, buy your snacks to go back on to the next trail system on. And I think it's going to be a very positive thing. And if people don't believe me, I encourage each and every one of you, I'll gladly drive you over there. Let's go to Gilbert, West Virginia for a day. They've been doing this for about 17 years now. There's cabins everywhere, and there's people on side-by-sides with West Virginia tags, or West Virginia changed the law where you don't have to have a tag on it as long as you're here visiting. You can ride on our highways. If you don't have a tag, the speed limit is 25 maximum for you on a state highway. And West Virginia is different than Kentucky. And where I work in both states, I get to learn a lot of what each one's differences are. West Virginia don't have county roads. Every road is a state highway. Kentucky, we have county city roads, so it's totally different. But it's not designed to be on 4 lanes. It's not designed for high-speed runs. It's designed for people in a safe environment with safety roll cages to be able to go on the highway, down the road to get back on the trail and continue on. And that's how they work it in Colorado, Utah, pretty much every area out west. And the big thing about that I want to talk about, the difference between, and me and Senator Smith had this conversation, what's the difference between Eastern Kentucky and Array, Colorado? Any idea? Anybody? Nothing. It was an old gold mine town that ran out of gold, and they changed it, and they was able to produce an opportunity and bring adventure tourism in on their natural resources to bring in the people to spend their hard-earned money. Colorado is by far, it's beautiful if you don't like trees, but I think Appalachia is just so much prettier. But the most important aspect of us for Colorado is that we're 500 miles away from 2/3 of the population, and that makes us superior.
And also, when you ride out there, there are different experiences for you. For example, as we finished the 500, we had to come up over top of Engineering Pass, which is almost 14,000 feet. But once we experienced the completion of it, to come down the other side, it took us an entire day to get back to where we started from.
Yep.
So in Kentucky, you can still get these goals of the ride and finish it, and then not come down and just have to literally just haul all rubber all day long just to get back where you were. So we have a tremendous advantage, which you guys are showing, that you can complete the marks on the map that you're doing for whatever race you're in or the route, and then not have to pay for that by spending that much time in the saddle, because it's hardly worth it when we got to the other side. I think we considered maybe going back, but that does take the fun out of it when you get there. Instead of having dinner, you drive into a hard dark trying to get back. Kentucky can offer these same experiences without having to do that. So we do have a distinctive advantage over some of that riding, just to point out.
Yeah.
I like
please
one
follow up,
follow-up. I'm still astonished by the number, myself, Senator Storm, Senator Smith, Representative Fugit, Representative Truitt, all of us have weighed in on this thing, on this Senate Bill 63, over this, tagging these vehicles. And it just, I can't, for the life of me, can't understand how one county can say they can do it and the other one don't. And we've made call after call and asked for requests, but I promise you we will clean it up next time. And hopefully this time we can 1, 2, 3 ABC it for them where they can get it right, because it's a pretty simple process. When you're putting a lien on a title, it doesn't get any more safe Somebody can't sell a vehicle without a lien on, if it's got a lien on it.
Well, one quick thing, with anybody that buys a new side-by-side now, they can automatically tag it and the lien. The problem, how it's explained to me, is that where it's an off-road title only, transferring to on-road. But now with the side-by-side, since the law has changed, anybody can buy a new side-by-side, and it will have an on-road use title versus off-road, which will save the problem. But for their existing people in different counties, like I know part of my process was I had to go to my bank, say, I'm a good boy, I promise I won't sell my side-by-side. Can you please release your lien on me, and I'll put it back on as soon as I get a title. And there's a lot of banks that's going to say no to that.
And even our transportation chairman, Senator Higdon, has weighed in on it, and we still can't seem to get it right. Of course, it would also help if, when we're making calls, if somebody was in transportation, that would make it a lot easier for us. Thank you.
And we have Representative Flannery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have a lot of good information in this presentation. The part that really caught my attention was the green APU in Boyd County. Now, there has been a lot of discussion on this. I actually inquired about this recently and had some, mixed feedback on this, but is this for certain that you expect this to be open in mid-2026?
Well, Green APU is my understanding. I was up there a couple of weeks ago. They got the building done. They have it on their website. They're actively on their website trying to hire people for the job positions for that facility.
Okay, that's great news. I know there was a lot of work put in Boyd County and regionally on this, and it seemed to go silent for a little bit. And I actually had a conversation about this, like I said, a couple weeks ago, trying to where are we at. But that's really good news, and this does seem to be a really popular sport with these rally cars and Vermont racing and all of those things. And I think it provides a great opportunity for jobs, influx of money coming in with tourism, and it's a win-win situation for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
As we wrap up, if you want to have one of these events in your community, like many of us have, you simply just need to sit down, talk to Eric, and tell him which particular sport you're interested in, and believe it or not, they'll make that happen for you. So please do reach out to him. Eric, appreciate you all coming. Gentlemen, thank you guys for coming in front of our committee.
Thank you for the honor.
All right, and last but not least, we appreciate the patience with our Public Service Commission. If they will please come to the table and identify yourselves. I'm not sure, I do apologize how much longer our members will stay, but we'll turn it over to you all and encourage you guys to maybe shorten your presentation a little bit so we can keep everybody. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Wish I had as much fun stuff to talk about as my friend Eric Hubbard. But I do appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you, Chairman Smith, Chairman Gooch. It's nice to be back at the Natural Resources Committee. I'm Angie Hatton, Chair of the Public Service Commission, and with me today are Linda Bridwell, who is Executive Director of the Public Service Commission, and Jeb Penny, who is Senior Advisor, and they are here to steer me right if I start to go wrong. I will give just a general overview in the interest of time, and if any of you want to discuss any of this further, if you want more information, I'm happy to give it. I'm also happy to come back and give a more in-depth presentation. A number of people on this committee have a very deep understanding of energy issues, but I'm going to start off fairly general. I was asked to talk about load forecast and about expectations for prices this winter, and a little bit about data centers if you have questions. If we don't get to all of it, again, I'm willing to come back. Appreciate the opportunity. So I've been in this business now for about 2.5 years in the energy regulation business. And as I travel to conferences, I have been overwhelmed with how volatile the industry is right now. And when I ask people, has it always been like this? The response is no. It has gotten, in just the last few years, a whole lot more difficult to predict our energy demand. Prices have gotten more volatile. And as background, for about 2 decades, 2000 to 2022, we had very stable load growth in this country. We had about 1% a year, steady. Some years there was no growth. Some years there was even a little decline when energy efficient appliances became part of the law, or if there was a large load that would come off. Those were the sorts of fears. It wasn't difficult to plan what sort of energy mix you were going to need or how much energy you were going to need to produce. There was no urgency to build generation quickly. There was no fear of retiring a plant. You just did it when it was the natural time that a plant would expect to be productive. And planning was much less complicated. Today, many factors have made that much more complicated. Increased electrification, AI. When you do an AI search, it takes a lot more electricity than it does to run what we now think of as an old-fashioned Google search, because of the very complicated calculations that get made every single time you do an AI search. There are looming data centers in nearly every community that are at least considering coming there, and they use a lot more electricity than traditional industry. And then green energy goals in this country have caused some utilities to retire other types of generation more quickly, and maybe before they were ready to fill the load growth needs with new energy sources. Also, the weather the severity and intensity of weather events has increased in this country. Wildfires, ice, tornadoes, floods, hurricanes make it more difficult to predict. And then that has produced a feeling in this country that we're starting to fear rolling blackouts. Energy emergencies are getting declared. And so we know we need more electricity, and maybe in some places have less available. And it's created a feeling of uncertainty. So every time we turn on the news, we're hearing about energy and utility issues. And so as I say all this about how very difficult it is to predict what we're going to need, I'll tell you the best I can about what our outlook for our load forecast in Kentucky is. So all our utilities are required to file IRPs. It's integrated resource plan, which lets us know how they're planning for the next 15 years. And they have to file these every 3 years, these IRPs, to let us know. And then every year they're also required to file annual reliability data. So there's a lot more information on the PSC's website, and I'm very willing to provide any of you that want more detailed information. But based on the modeling and the snapshots and the rapidly changing information that we have in Kentucky, in general, nationwide, the total demand is up for 2025 about 2.3%. And then for 2026, we're expecting nationwide 3% growth. That sounds little, but it is not. That is about 3 times the growth that we would normally have predicted in that 20-year period I told you about, when it was going to be about a 1% growth. But where that growth is going to happen is really hard to predict. So in Kentucky, we have all of our utilities have filed their most recent annual reliability data. And I'm going to do it real quickly, one by one, for our utilities. And again, this is most likely scenario because you cannot account for the unlikely. You can't account for either a huge company leaving your territory, or with data centers speculating in lots of different territories. They may show up in your territory. They're talking about showing up in your territory. And if they show up, you have to provide service for them. But it takes a lot longer to build power generation than it does to build a data center. So these companies are struggling to predict the best they can. So also the demand is not uniform. So generally in eastern Kentucky, we're expecting a slow decline in need for electricity unless something changes. In western Kentucky, a slow growth. And then in central Kentucky, a faster growth. Duke is expecting, at least from their most recent filing, to remain steady. Big Rivers Electric out in western Kentucky is predicting about a 0.19% growth. EKPC, East Kentucky Power Company, which is not in eastern Kentucky, it's more central Kentucky, is expecting a 1.17% growth. Kentucky Utilities, which has a territory all the way from Madisonville in the west to Harlan County in the east, is expecting about a 0.82%, and their sister company, Louisville Gas and Electric, is expecting as much as 4.04% growth. Kentucky Power has not updated their filing as recently as the others, but they haven't done anything wrong. They just haven't been required to yet, and they're expecting a decrease of about 0.68%. So again, not being able to account for everything that might happen, that is the most recent load forecast for the different regions of Kentucky. And then again, nationwide, about 2.3% growth this year, about 3% next year. So, I've had it with this name tag pulling my hair. In general, Kentucky is better off than a lot of other states. We have vertical integration, which means that we regulate from bottom to top. Our utilities have not just distribution, but generation, so that we're producing power and then distributing it. Some other states that have deregulated are much more reliant on the market for purchasing power. The PSC, since its inception in the mid-1930s, has required and stressed and demanded of its utilities that we have enough steel in the ground to produce our own power so you can meet your native load without forcing your customers to be relying on power that was purchased from the market. Kentucky's resource mix has also been a hedge against the volatility of the market and fluctuations. So our resource mix as it stands now is still 69% coal, 26% gas, about 5 to 6% hydro, and then everything else less than 1%. So that includes solar, biofuel, all of that. And also, through the history of the Public Service Commission, we have stressed vegetation management with increasing stressing lately so that we can minimize outages. So even though there's a cost to requiring companies to cut the right-of-way and be very conscious of their vegetation management, that does minimize outages. So in general, Kentucky doing a little bit better than the rest of the country. As far as prices and what we can expect this winter, nationwide, the rate of utility bill increase has been more than double the rate of inflation. So in Kentucky, a little better. We're generally lower in all categories, but as an example, in the nation, the residential rate is 16.48 cents per MMBTU. In Kentucky, the residential rate is 13.04 cents per MMBTU. Not as low as we used to be. We used to be the lowest or second lowest. Still, in general, for attracting economic development, we do have much lower than national average rate for utilities. And as far as prices this winter, the short answer is that no one expects prices to go down. But it is very dependent on two factors: weather and the price of natural gas. So if the weather is colder or hotter, we use more electricity. The fourth quarter of 2025 is expected to be colder than the fourth quarter of last year, and this will likely result in more heating degree days. Gas prices are generally up. This is about supply and demand. The PSC can't control gas prices. The utilities cannot control gas prices. But in general, the cost of gas is expected to be up this year, and this is because just the supply is remaining steady, or the expectation is that it will. The production of gas from gas wells in the United States is predicted to remain steady, but meanwhile, the demand has gone up. Europe is buying more American gas, partly because Europe doesn't want to buy Russian gas due to the Ukraine and Russian war. And I am going to wrap up. I know I need to go quickly, Senator. I appreciate you. But that is going to be a cost increase. And on top of the weather and gas prices, utilities are entitled to recover their reasonable costs. This is something I didn't understand as well when I was a state legislator and went 6 different times and yelled at the PSC about affordability. The PSC is required to do a balance and to make sure that utilities can recover their reasonable costs, because if they can't recover their costs, they can't stay in business and nobody has power. But the PSC and lots of intervening parties are looking at every cost to make sure that they're reasonable, to make sure that things like corporate jets and lobbying expenses and those things are excluded, and that the companies are doing everything they can to keep their prices low. But at the same time, utilities are falling victim to inflation the same as all of us. The cost for a utility pole is 75% more than it was 3 years ago. The cost for transformers has doubled in the last few years. So when the utilities are entitled to recover their costs, we're going to expect the rates are going to go up some. There are assistance agencies available, from LIHEAP to utility programs to home energy audits to apps that can track your usage in your home and help you keep it low. And then also on our website, we have a customer bill of rights that I would encourage all of you to take a look at. It includes some of the protections for weather-related disconnections that we heard from Senator Chambers Armstrong earlier. And if you want any more information about any of that, of course, please let us know and we'll be sure to provide that for you. And finally, I'd like to touch on data centers just a bit. So, for those who don't know, a data center is not, I think we've had a lot of miscommunication about what data centers are when we go around the state and go to our public comment hearings. People think that it's about gathering their personal data. It's just processing information. So all of our hyperscalers need to process information, and that takes space, and it takes a lot of power. So if a data center is looking to locate in your utilities territory, in your county, there's got to be a lot of planning for that, because it's going to be bigger in general than even our biggest electricity users like Toyota or, the Blue Oval. In general, those data centers could be expected to use more power. Again, the territories are required to serve them if they show up there, and we haven't the generation to provide for them yet. We're trying to plan and know where they're coming, but sometimes they don't know. So, they are also when we're building generation, it takes 5 to 6 years to build. There's supply chain issues. All of the companies are trying to buy the same parts to build new generation. And then there's tariffs to consider on some of the parts. Tax incentives are there, or maybe they're not. They're going away in some instances, depending on what type of generation you're building. But this has ratepayers very concerned, because in the end, if we're not really careful, we'll build as quickly as we can to have generation ready to serve these data centers, and then the data centers could pull out and leave the ratepayers to pay the cost of building all that new generation. So 2 of our utilities so far have filed EHLF tariffs, extreme high load factor tariffs. They're open cases, so I can't really talk about the details or what we're going to do as far as approving or not approving them, but my staff has compiled comparisons between the EHLF factor tariffs that have been filed for those 2 utilities. We expect them to come from other utilities, and we're comparing them to other states like Ohio, Texas, Georgia, some other states that have put protections in place to make sure that the industries that are causing the cost causers, end up paying those costs and not the ratepayers. So we're being very careful and mindful as people bring proposals to us that we only apply the cost to those who caused those costs. And in the past few years, if you've been following the PSC, and I know a lot on this committee we have denied economic development rates for some companies that were expecting to pay a new economic development, have the new economic development opportunity, pay lower rates than what the ratepayers were going to, or if they didn't have enough capacity to serve them, so that then their other ratepayers may be in danger of blackouts or something like that if they didn't have the capacity to serve them. So I am very happy to answer your more questions. Come back. I know you're short on time. I brought a ton of information with me, and I brought 2 incredible experts. I have a staff of financial analysts and attorneys who are world-class, phenomenal, and can get you the information that you need. I have thoroughly enjoyed learning every single day from my staff at the Public Service Commission, and we're at your service.
Well, it's good to have you back over at our chamber. We've got quite a few questions. I'll yield at this point to Representative Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair Lady Hatton, it's always good to see you. Glad you're here with us today. Thank you for your presentation. I want to go back to your numbers. to Eastern Kentucky, you talked about that the projection is a reduction in need for power in the future for Eastern Kentucky. You recall what I'm talking about? So is that anticipation due to a reduction in population, or are we just saying we're going to give up on East Kentucky? We're never going to get any kind of industry come to Eastern Kentucky, so we're not going to have any need for power, and so there's going to be a reduction of need.
Well, the need projection is based on what the power company says that they expect. And that all can change on a dime if a new economic development opportunity comes up. It is in general based on less population. And I would note that just because they need to generate less power does not necessarily mean that expenses can go down if they have to maintain lines over the same distances while there are fewer ratepayers to serve. So I'm not one that's ever going to give up on Eastern Kentucky. I know you're not, and lots of people in here are not. I don't even think the power company is trying to give up on Eastern Kentucky. That's just a cold, hard truth right now.
Thank you, Chair Lady. And I know you won't give up on Eastern Kentucky. You're with me. Just a moment, if I may, Mr. Chairman. So these type things, I guess, give me heartburn. Ever since I've been here for 9 years, I fought for legislation that would help rural areas of Kentucky to bring industry to no avail, to have people come in and fight against that and kill it. We've watched, going back, beginning primarily the big fall began in the Obama administration when they began attacking coal and fossil fuels. We were a strong, independent area that this entire state loved our coal severance tax monies that they got coming out of the hills of Eastern Kentucky. We had low energy rates. We were down there at that point. You talked about we're at 13%, national average is 16%. Back then, we were down there at that bottom 1 or 2 states, and they have decimated our coal industry. I had a gentleman sit here from a power company talking about how that their goal, their vision, their mission statement was to provide the most affordable, most efficient form of electricity to their customers. And when I asked him the question, what was more efficient, coal or fossil fuels, coal or renewables? He said coal. I said, what was the cheapest form? Again, the answer was coal. So why have we gone away from coal and fossil fuels? And not only that, we talked earlier about shutting off meters. And Chair Lady, you and I come from an area of the state where that, unfortunately, that's become too uncommon. But all this that has happened, and I'm not blaming PSC. This is not you all. This is me on a rant about Eastern Kentucky and what's happened to us, okay? They've shut down an industry that fed many families, that raised many families, that were prideful people, all in the name of saying that, well, we got to do this to save the planet. We got to save the planet. When other countries are building coal-fired plants every day while we're sitting here, they're building them. But yet we're making our people, we talked about in the shutting off, we don't want them to suffer, we don't want people to die. But yet we didn't care to go into a region of our state and decimate it by ending practically our coal industry. And it's time that this body, it's time that the General Assembly, the executive branch, also at the federal level, we take a hard look at getting back to what provides the best form of energy for our people. We're going to need it for these AI companies that's coming in and building these building these AI systems because we need the demand for the electricity. And it's high time that we get back to putting our coal miners back to work. We get to mining coal, and we provide the most efficient, cost-effective electricity for our people and rebuild our economy in Eastern Kentucky to what it once was. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, but thank you for the time.
Absolutely. Next, we have Senator West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 very quick questions. You mentioned LG&E and KU. LG&E specifically was calling for a 4% increase. Do they have the capacity to meet that demand?
So currently, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, either of you, KU has a bit, and LG&E have a bit of excess capacity, but are going to need more if speculative. I shouldn't use the word speculative because that's a hot button word. But if data centers come or don't come, in general, is that correct? In general, yeah, there are some utilities who are coming up a bit short of capacity, but that's not one of them as of now. There is a current CPC in case that is asking to build a lot more generation, and we'll see how much is actually needed. Your brother in the Attorney General's office, I believe your brother works at the Attorney General's office.
Yes,
are in charge of looking out for ratepayers and intervene in nearly every one of our cases, and are helping us with the consultants they hire to examine all of these proposals to make sure that we don't overbuild.
Switching gears briefly to the data centers, you talked about how that works and how the ratepayers could be negatively affected. Just for the record, there are ways and there are legal methods to which a data center, incoming data center, can contract with that power company, and they can make this a win-win for the consumer. So what I mean by that is you enter into an agreement with the company to build a certain amount of generation. The data center themselves, initially or over time, are actually paying for the generation. The generation goes directly to the data center. Any excess power goes onto the grid. The ratepayer gets the benefit of the excess energy. And so just so you could publicly state that, the ratepayers we don't have to put up with this as legislators, and we can protect ratepayers. It's not an only option, only one option, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a way legally that the ratepayers can be protected through these contracts. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and a really big part of it is what type of tariff we allow the utilities to enact. And there are numerous different ways that other states are doing it. We're watching them and comparing, for instance, requiring that they be in business at least 15 years, requiring really big bonds in advance that would cover the eventuality that maybe they left. And then there's the bring your own power, bring your own generation, BYOP or BYOG, which means that they're going to build generation to meet their load and sort of co-locate with plants. And a lot of data centers are looking at things like that, even nuclear plants. So
how are you going to handle that on your own? Would you need legislation to guide you on how to handle that, or do you think you have the tools at your disposal to make sure that the ratepayers are protected from the
Madam
incoming
Chairman,
data centers?
if I could, I'm extremely familiar with this. This is the tricky part with what you've got. It's a very, very valid point. But as long as they stay inside that box and don't try to start selling power off their property, then it does leave the Public Service Commission at arm's length. At the moment that they do what you mentioned about, say Company A is producing 35 megawatts, they only need 30. They've got an additional 5 megawatts. It's only 3 cents, and they decide they're going to sell it to the town of Jenkins, which would be a great deal for them. That's when the utilities are going to come down on them on that tariff violation. I've gone through every one of these tariffs. I've sat down, and I will tell you, the next time you can't sleep for a month, go through them, because I have gone through every single one of them. But you're onto something. But that's the rub, and you're right. We can fix it. It's not going to be something that's going to be an easy fix, but the second that you decide that you want to do something good with that power is where you're going to hit into the tariff. And again, that will trip some issues in there. The violation will be on you for trying to do something good with it. But it's a bigger issue than what we could probably get into, but it's one that I would be happy to sit down with you and go through show you some live data on it if you're interested in it. But you're right. There are some things that we can do. Some other states do it. Kentucky, we're a Commonwealth. We're not as we don't have as many, I guess, tools in our toolbox as some of the other states do. But we do run into that tariff thing. So I would encourage members here, if you're curious, to go into that tear up woodshed and just start reading them, go through them.
So as far as I know, Senator, we have the tools we need. Senator Smith knows about as much as I do by now about how this works. But as far as I know, we have the tools. We are definitely open to talking and listening and offering analysis from the many experts that I am lucky enough to get to work with every day in case something like that comes up.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We have Representative Fugit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here today, Commissioner. You said something about a while ago. It's about 13 cents. The average in Kentucky. Is that the entire state? 13 cents.
Right, that's the average across the state, and it does vary by utility and area.
Do you have what's the difference in our area, East Kentucky? How much higher are we than the average? Do you have that? Do you have that data in like areas? Can you provide that data for the different areas of Kentucky?
I definitely can. That's one thing I didn't stick in this folder today. But in general, East Kentucky pays the Kentucky Power Region pays the highest rate in the state, and then also the highest volumetric use, which means they're using more power, and the rates are a bit higher than the rest of the state. But if you want details, I'll be sure and get those to you.
Okay, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Representative Smith will be next.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I was one that was glad to see you put on the commission because you do understand our area and you do take in the consideration of what Representative Blanton was saying by knowing the area. The concern I have, are you familiar with the manager of the grid that takes in several states? There's a company that manages the grid.
Different RTOs.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware that they've testified in front of our committee a couple of years ago that in 26 there will be a less supply than there is demand?
I'm familiar in general that was the expected trend.
Okay, I believe it was when we was having testimony on the brownout in Western Kentucky. Has the PSC instructed anybody to be looking at the alternative for our grids to make sure we don't have a brownout?
We have, and I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was just going to say, and where you expect to get the power from?
So we're a vertically integrated state, which means that we expect our power companies to have enough generation to manage their native load without resorting to going to the market. So there are a number of states in this country right now that are in dire straits because they're relying on a very volatile market. And with the base residual auction coming in very high this year for the PJM region, Kentucky actually is in 2 RTOs. We're part of us in Western Kentucky are in the MISO region, and then the more eastern part of the state, we're in the PJM territory. And if you're relying on the market right now, it is scary territory. All of our utilities, as of now, have the ability to meet their native load. The scary thing is if we can't build generation fast enough to meet the expected rise in demand, that we end up relying too much on the market. But in general, our resource mix also protects us from the fluctuations of the market as well. So the 69% coal, 26% natural gas, 5% hydro, and then less than 1%.
Have you ever looked at the possibility of running coal, getting what the administration wanted years ago, shut down? Say we've had enough. Everybody go home, get on unemployment, figure out what we had to do in the East to replace the jobs. Have you ever thought about that affecting, West Virginia, Kentucky, the coal miners said, okay, the owners are probably in pretty decent shape. Financially, they could go home, live wherever they want to, but the workers. Have you ever thought of, is that any consideration when you're looking at raising these rates? They're coming to you asking for a 20% increase, a 15% increase, and your consideration, well, we're not going to give you 15, but we'll give you 6. Well, they come back this year and now they're wanting 15, thinking they'll get 5. You know, I don't know what games are played up there, and I know you don't play them. I'm just saying, all these things that you're faced with, is there any consideration that 26 is here next year and what you're going to be doing when you're not having somebody come and ask for a rate increase? They're asking for electric. They're asking for grid space. Where are we all headed? We're saying coal because we live in that area, and it's jobs. But if I didn't even live in that area, I'd say I want electric. And 69% of our grid is supplied by what we're asking for. People to go to work and let's produce it and let's get our economy right and get mostly have protection for people. I mean, I go out when my electric goes out in a storm, I'm lost. I mean, for 2 or 3 days, it's miserable. But can you imagine what we're talking about? And am I pulling the wrong fire alarm? Am I being too dramatic and saying when a grid manager says that he's not going to have the supply for the demand, am I wrong in saying, and the PSC is managing this? Am I right? You're the manager of our utilities. And so are we on the same team? I mean, and I'm not trying to put you in the spot because I know that you was appointed, and I know a lot of difference of opinions, and I'm not trying to hold Miss Hatton responsible, but I'm saying we don't have this. This is 5 years. This is my first opportunity to have PSC in front of me. I'm sure they've probably been before. Maybe I missed the committee, but I'm going to take. I don't care if it takes to 6 o'clock to understand this. I'm really worried about what is ahead of us in the next 2 or 3 years, and it's not nuclear because I've asked that question, and they said it'd take 10 years to build a plant if we started today. So there's not, at 69%, we don't have any options. Can we all just get on the same team, get people back to work, and let's mine the coal, fire the generators up, and if we need to build a new fire generator, come to the committee, come to appropriations and say we need to build a new one. We need more grid. We need more electric produced. And I know I'm rattling, but am I wrong? Because I've listened to testimony on this, Commissioner, and tell me where I'm wrong and where we're missing the boat at, if you could, if you can. If you can't, just say I can't answer that.
I heard several questions in there. Yeah. You're not putting me on the spot. I am on the spot, and the buck does stop with us, and we don't sleep well. And we have a lot to worry about. And I don't want sympathy for it. I accepted this job, and it's a tough one. In general, Kentucky is in better shape than a lot of states when we travel around to these commissions and we hear the absolute panic in the voice of some deregulated states. In general, we are better off with their resource mix. As far as whether overnight they could just shut down coal-fired power plants and fossil fuels, states like West Virginia and Kentucky have legislation in place to prevent that. And often it was at odds with some federal the direction that the federal government was going. Now, for the time being at least, is in line with the direction that the federal administration is going. But due to Senate Bill 8, Senate Bill 4, the creation of the EPIC Commission, there are a number of considerations that go into shutting down a fossil fuel plant in Kentucky that other states don't have.
And that was just happening in the last year. That's what I'm saying. At least we were prudent enough to understand we can't shut any more of them down. We understood that, so we passed legislation. We make it harder for that to be the game plan. It was to quit shutting them and let's get us some game plan that gives us a future, a 20-year plan or a 10-year plan. But in saying this, and I'll finish because I understand everybody's position here, but it does get tough because the responsibility not only falls on us as legislators, but as a whole, as a PSC, the utility companies, everybody has to take a piece of this. And we have to come together and be on the same page. And all I'm saying is they come in, they testify, well, we're not using coal because of all the regulations, all the costs that's placed on. Well, that's all. The cost is regulation. It's all the EPA, all the carbon taxes, all these things that they placed on it. If those were reduced, it would be more cost effective, and also not be penalized for utilizing coal. All these things have been placed on it. And I'm saying, can we all not agree that we need this source, and all being in agreement that how do we get there is to reduce the restrictions on it, the cost on it, so it can be cost effective for our people. You know, I heard a story this week, and I'm not fronted out, but a business had two businesses. One was in Perry County, one was in my district in Corbin. Same business model. Their electric bill was $8,600 last month, and in Corbin it was $5,300. And the one in Perry County used less electricity, 10,000 watts or whatever the kilowatts or whatever that is. They used less energy and had almost a 50%, almost 100% cost to operate their business. Something is not jiving. And I don't know what it is, and I'm just calling on the PSC to help us figure this out. Because when they come before you and ask for these increases, I know that you're weighing everything. I watched your show, I listened to you the other day, and you've done a great job. It was easy to understand. You was explaining why the difference in cost was, that we needed to look at keeping their costs down. I appreciated everything. What I'm trying to figure out is, have you ever known the PSC to reduce utility cost? Have you ever had electric bills go down? Have you ever had gas bills go down? Gas is at a flat, and I apologize, Mr. Chairman, but gas is at a flat rate, $3, $3.40. But we still get increases in our gas prices, our utilities. Well, if the cost is down, the lowest it's been in average in the last 5 years, I remember it being going up to 10. I remember those cost exaggerations, but it's been flatlined because of the abundance. Well, you would think that there's got to be a time when they've got it, there's enough, and we can start reducing instead of keep increasing. And again, I apologize for rambling, but this was my opportunity, and I took it. And a lot of questions get asked us out there when I never heard of this. We had a surcharge put on during the coldest part of our winter, a 15% surcharge in my area. And it just about, you thought the world, and it did come to an end at a point when their bill went up 15 to 18%, and I never heard of it before in my life, but the legislator had voted to let them put a charge on to capture their expenses, and it just so happened they put it on in the coldest part of winter, the highest cost, and those are the things that we face. And somehow we should all be in this together. I know you want it best for the customers, and I know you're there to protect the customers, but again, I've said what I needed to, and that is we have to find a way to make sure that we don't lose our grid and we don't lose our electorate. And when somebody says that it's coming to a peak, it's coming to a crossing line, and give us 2 years to look at that, then I think that we better be aware of what we're fixing to face. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. We have one last question here. We'll yield to Senator.
Actually, excuse me, I just wanted to give, we've had testimony in the AI subcommittee. The last set of AI data centers were 200 to 300 megawatt. The current generation they're building are 400 to 600 megawatt. The next generation that they're going to build based upon the 2028 chips that are already announced will be 1 to 2 gigawatt for one data center. We don't have the transmission lines for that. And the testimony they said is they believe not 10 years, but probably 20 to 30 years before nuclear power is going to be available. Quite frankly, I think coal is our only option, and we need to find a way. I know this isn't a question, but we need to find a way to build those plants now because gas is too unreliable if we're going to be in this in a way that when they build the data center, they can also fund the power center because it's not going down the grid. It's all going into that data center at 2 gigawatts.
Yeah, and at the same time, we have to balance the idea that if we don't build extra generation and get ready for data centers, they're going to go somewhere else. And then that's economic development opportunity. So it feels like a tightrope that we're walking, and we're super aware of the tightrope and here to answer questions. We'll come back. We heard a number of issues today that might need a deeper dive, and we'd be willing to come back and talk. Anything else?
And I
Linda?
think so. And I truly appreciate you guys coming. I apologize for the late hour. Obviously, a lot of involvement and engagement from the committee. I just want to certainly thank you all. There will probably be some follow-up from this. There's some much deeper dive to get into AI graphics and all that. But thank you all. For our committee members, just remember our next meeting is going to be 11/16 at 1 p.m. 10/16 at 1 p.m. I got to get new glasses. But if there's no further business before the body, need a motion to adjourn. Motion second. All